When a companion animal dies, a cat may stop eating for days. It may sit motionless at the door, waiting. It may search every room in the house, systematically, repeatedly. These are not random behaviors. They are grief, documented, measurable, and deeply rooted in feline evolutionary biology. Searching behavior. Domestic cats descended from Felis sylvestris libica, a solitary North African wildcat that formed selective, long-term bonds with specific individuals in its territory. When one of those individuals disappeared, the surviving cat's survival depended on locating them or confirming their absence. That search drive never left the genome. When a bonded companion dies, the cat's brain does not receive a chemical signal that says, "This bond is permanently severed." Oxytocin and vasopressin, the same neurochemicals that reinforce social bonding in humans, continue to generate expectation. The cat searches because its nervous system is still anticipating the return of a familiar presence. Owners frequently misread this as confusion or restlessness. It is neither. It is the activation of a biological search protocol that in the wild occasionally succeeded. The correct human response is not to physically restrict the cat or immediately rearrange the environment. Removing all scent traces of the deceased companion too quickly eliminates the very olfactory data the cat is using to process the loss. Vocalization changes. Cats are largely silent with each other. The meow, as researchers at Stockholm University confirmed in 2021, is a communication system cats developed specifically for humans, not for other cats. A grieving cat that begins vocalizing more than usual is not talking to the ghost. It is redirecting a communication channel that has lost its primary recipient. In multi-cat households, the surviving cat often inherits the deceased cat's vocalization patterns within weeks. This is social learning under stress. The brain's anterior cingulate cortex, the region associated with social pain in mammals, activates in response to the absence of a bonded individual, and vocalization becomes a regulatory behavior, similar to how humans talk aloud when distressed. Owners who respond to increased vocalization with punishment or deliberate ignoring are interrupting a neurological coping mechanism. Passive presence, being in the same room without forcing interaction, is consistently more effective. Appetite suppression. A 2016 survey by the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals found that 46% of cats ate less following the death of a companion animal. This is not a behavioral quirk. It has a direct physiological basis. The hypothalamus regulates both appetite and social bonding responses. When social stress is registered through elevated cortisol and reduced serotonin, the hypothalamus deprioritizes feeding signals. In the wild, this was functional. A grieving, distracted predator in unfamiliar social circumstances is a vulnerable one, and temporary appetite suppression may have redirected cognitive resources toward threat assessment. In a domestic environment, prolonged appetite suppression beyond 48 hours creates genuine medical risk. Hepatic lipidosis, fatty liver disease, can develop in cats that stop eating for as few as 2 to 3 days. Owners waiting for the cat to eat when it's ready may be inadvertently allowing a grief response to become a medical emergency. Lethargy and postural change. Grief in cats produces a measurable reduction in baseline activity. A cat that previously patrolled, played, and maintained a predictable daily movement pattern may spend up to 20 additional hours per day stationary. It will often adopt a tucked, compressed posture, limbs folded inward, tail wrapped around the body. This posture has a direct autonomic origin. The parasympathetic nervous system, when overwhelmed by unresolved social stress, initiates a conservation state. Heart rate drops, muscle tone decreases. The body is not shutting down. It is allocating resources away from activity and toward internal recalibration. In wild felid populations, this state has been observed following the death of a pride companion in lions and the loss of a bonded sibling in cheetahs. It is phylogenetically ancient. The domestic cat's version is neurologically identical. The error owners most commonly make here is forcing stimulation, insisting on play sessions, carrying the cat, introducing new toys. The conservation state requires a period of completion. Interrupting it prematurely extends its duration. Scent marking intensification. Following the death of a companion, many cats dramatically increase scent marking behavior, rubbing their face face and flanks against furniture, door frames, and the belongings of the deceased. Facial rubbing deposits pheromones from the cat's perioral, cheek, and chin glands. These pheromones function as olfactory anchors, chemical signals that say, territorially and neurologically, this space is known, this space is safe. When a bonded companion dies, the pheromone landscape of the home shifts. The deceased cat's scent begins to fade from shared spaces, and the surviving cat experiences this as environmental destabilization. The intensified marking is a rebuilding of that chemical map. Synthetic versions of feline facial pheromones, commercially available since the 1990s following research at the École Nationale Vétérinaire in Nantes, have been shown in clinical settings to reduce grief-related anxiety behaviors in surviving cats by reinforcing the olfactory environment without requiring the cat to do the work itself. Attachment transfer. Not all cats withdraw during grief. A significant subset, particularly cats that occupied a subordinate social role in a multi-cat household, show the opposite response. They become intensely focused on the human owner, following them from room to room, sleeping in direct physical contact, and vocalizing when the owner leaves. This is attachment transfer. The cat's social bonding drive, previously distributed between the human and the deceased companion, has been entirely redirected toward the only remaining bonded individual. The neurochemical demand for oxytocin release does not diminish because a companion is gone. It concentrates. Owners who find this behavior suffocating and respond in creating distance are misreading the mechanism. The cat is not malfunctioning. It is running an evolutionarily coherent strategy. When the group shrinks, reinforce the remaining bond with maximum intensity. Sleep location change. Cats are creatures of spatial habit. A bonded pair will develop preferred sleeping locations over months and years, often in physical contact or within close proximity. After one cat dies, the surviving cat will frequently continue to return to that shared location, sometimes for weeks. This is not sentimentality in a human sense. It is the persistence of a conditioned neurological routine. The brain's basal ganglia, which govern habitual behavior, do not update immediately when the social context of a habit is removed. The location was reinforced hundreds of times. The brain continues to generate the behavior until the reinforcement pattern dissolves through repeated, unrewarded repetition. In some cases, cats will sleep in the deceased companion's bed exclusively, avoiding their own previous sleeping area. This may reflect olfactory comfort seeking. The deceased cat's scent lingers longest in their primary resting location, and proximity to that scent continues to activate bonding neurochemistry. Recovery timeline. Feline grief does not follow a fixed schedule. Research compiled by veterinary behaviorist Dr. John Bradshaw at the University of Bristol indicates that observable grief behaviors in cats typically resolve within 2 to 6 months, with the median closer to 3. However, cats that experienced unusually long or intense bonding, particularly littermates raised together from birth, have shown extended grief periods of up to a year. The single most reliable predictor of recovery duration is not the length of the bond. It is the richness of the surviving cat's environment. Cats with consistent human interaction, environmental enrichment, and stable routines recover measurably faster than those left in static, understimulated environments. Introducing a new companion animal during active grief, a common owner instinct, has inconsistent outcomes. Introduced too early, a new cat is perceived as a territorial threat, not a social replacement, and grief behaviors can intensify. The behavioral literature generally recommends waiting until the surviving cat has returned to baseline feeding and activity levels before any new introduction. Feline grief is not an anomaly. It is what a nervous system built for social bonding looks like when that bond is severed: precise, measurable, and entirely coherent with the biology that produced it.